in-gathering our consciousness with the help of the mantra, with the help of focus on our breath, taking three long deep breaths in and out and staying with them fully. Yes, thank you. So we
Namaskar.
were we had started with the first chapter from the book Looking from Within, a compilation by Mr. A.S. Dalal. So we wouldn't cover too much last time. We were just reflecting on some points, which was a beautiful reflection. So we'll just go through what we had read, like the first paragraph, and we'll continue to read the whole paragraph today, hopefully. So the topic is looking at life and circumstances. And the first thing that we had taken up that is there is power of attitude. So if you would like, you can read it. Otherwise, I'll be happy to read. Slowly just going over the words.
Yes. Looking at life and circumstances. Power of attitude. Is it really the best that always happens? It is clear that all that has happened had to happen. It could not be otherwise. By the universal by the universal determinism, it had to happen. But we can say so only after it has happened, not before. For the problem of the very best that can happen is an individual problem, whether the individual be a nation or a single human being, and all depends upon the personal attitude. If, in the presence of circumstances that are about to take place, you can take the highest attitude possible, that is, if you put your consciousness in contact with the highest consciousness within reach, you can be absolutely sure that in that case, it is the best that can happen to you. But as soon as you fall from this consciousness into a lower state, then it is evidently not the best that can happen, for the simple reason that you are not in the very best consciousness. I even go so far as to affirm that in the zone of immediate influence of each one, the right attitude not only has the power to turn every circumstance for to advantage, but can change the very circumstance itself. For instance, when a man comes to kill you, if you remain in the ordinary consciousness and get frightened out of your wits, he will most least he will yeah, sorry, he will most probably succeed in doing what he came for. If you rise a little higher and, though full of fear, call for the divine help, he may just miss you, doing you a slight injury. If, however, you have the right attitude and the full consciousness of the divine presence everywhere around you, he will not be able to lift even a finger against you. Ma'am, there is just one sentence. Do you mind if I read it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Um, the presence. Can you scroll up a little bit, please? Yeah. Okay. So if in the presence of circumstances that are about to take place, you can take the highest attitude possible. That is, if you put your consciousness in contact with the highest consciousness within reach, you can be absolutely sure that in that case it is the best that can happen. So it says if you put your highest consciousness in contact with the if you put your consciousness in contact with the highest consciousness within reach, you can be absolutely sure that in that case it is the best that can happen. Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you. So the topic is attitude, right? And they are telling us how it's the attitude which really determines whether the best is happening to you or not. So that's how it starts with the question that is it really the best that always happens? And the answer is that it depends on you, right? What your attitude is. And like what you just reread, that if in the presence of circumstances that are about to take place, you can take the highest attitude possible. That is, if you put your consciousness in contact with the highest consciousness within reach, you can be absolutely sure that in that case, it is the best that can happen to you. You know, for this, a lot of faith, a lot of servitude, not servitude, a lot of certitude is needed that only the best happens to me. But, you know, our definitions of best, I guess, seem to be challenged here because for me, what is the best, right? Best means that, okay, everybody is healthy, everybody is happy, everybody is financially settled, there is harmony, there's cordiality, you know, it's just this, which is the best. But if a challenge comes, if a tragedy comes, if something difficult comes, then I cry out, right? That, oh, it is not the best. You know, only just a little while back, uh, just 1 second, somebody wants the joining link. Yeah, somebody had posted there's a quote somebody had posted. I thought that was very good. Let me just take that one. So the quote is that I have become very sensitive and get upset for the slightest reasons. That's the question somebody had asked Mother, and Mother has replied that these are vital perturbations which show themselves in the course of the sadhana and have to be eliminated. They must not be regarded as natural movements justified by the wrong actions of others and bound to continue so long as there is an external cause. The real cause is eternal and it can be got rid of by yogic disciplines, vigilance, self detachment, and acquired but strict rejection. You know, something happens to us, you know, we go into the karma theory. अरे मैंने ही कुछ बुरा करा होगा इसलिए मेरे साथ हो रहा है. अरे मेरे साथ ही क्यों ऐसा होता है? As in, whenever there is a challenge, it's a fact that I get into a victim mode, right? कि मेरे, you know, the whole world against me or circumstances against me. But if there is this certitude which is a little hard to come, that No, just the best, just the best, just the best. So if one is used to practicing, connecting within, if one has touched the space of something higher than yourself, which really, really, really deepens with some practice, one can keep connecting within to that source, to that higher and higher life. In Buddhist texts, and even Mother has, I think, said this, and I'm just paraphrasing that, when we leave the body, when the soul leaves the body, and I don't know which part of it, but, there's a beautiful light that you can see. It's called the Mother Luminosity, and it's really bright. So most of us, we get scared, right? Suddenly, say there's a sunlight brightness right on your face, and we just turn away, or we just, we can't handle it. But people who have been practicing with, little lights, as in not maybe the mother luminosity, but even smaller, which they are able to touch while they were alive, for them, they are able to take the light and they work towards it. So that decides whether there will be rebirth, or, whether one will go somewhere else and not again stuck in the karmic cycles. I don't know how true, how well I am saying this and how much truth there is in it, the way I am saying it. But it's just that, how people say, ki, Ram Naam Satya hai, or he has rest in peace. But if I am not looking for peace or resting in peace while I am alive, then after my death, it's just कि बोलने में अच्छा लगता है ना, सुनने में अच्छा लगता है कि अरे वो पूरा हो गया, or he had rested in peace. But if my whole life was struggling, or was full of anxiety and small, 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 small concerns and reactions and actions which visit me every day, then if I just by leaving the body, if the vital is the same, if my whole system is the same, I'm just fooling myself very beautifully if I'm saying that yes, yes, I will rest in peace, or the somebody else rest in peace. That's not going to happen. So, you know, that's why I guess everybody, has said कि जो करना है अभी कर लो, right? कर लो, अभी जागो. And yeah, Kabir ji also has such beautiful couplets on this. Yeah, I don't know, what you are doing, and the whole world is, laughing and partying, and I'm standing and crying. Ki, this birth is for somewhere, something else, but that's okay. Let's not go on that tangent, but it's what I'm capable of right now. So that's what I guess. It's just reminding us that I need to connect to the highest need. Like something happens, we get moved. That's okay, we get moved. But the next moment when I can catch myself, can't I ask myself that, but does not everything happen for my best? The answer is yes. So can I not think that, oh, this is a tragedy that has happened to me? One can talk oneself out of it. If that deep certitude has not yet developed, we can still hold on to the threads of whatever we are surrounded with. And that is why I guess like the right company, Sangha, the Dharma, they say, right? Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, these things are considered so important. So Ritu, we are just going over what we had gone over last time, and then we'll take up the next thing. We have just read this paragraph. So we've just, read this, and you can read it too. It's quite nice. Then we'll go on further. The highlighted part, if you want to read aloud, you can, or you can just read it.
Yeah, actually, I have a very bad throat.
Okay, yeah, I'll read it for you. So it
Yeah.
says that if in the presence of circumstances that are about to take place, you can take the highest attitude possible. That is, if you put your consciousness in contact with the highest consciousness within reach, you can be absolutely sure that in that case, it is the best that can happen to you. So we were just, reflecting on this. And of course, we'll know more as we go further.
Yeah, right.
So, moving further, it says that as soon as you fall from this consciousness into a lower state, that it is evidently not the best that can happen for the simple reason that you are not in your very best consciousness, as in the state of being, right? If that is not good, if where I am, my attitude is originating from the right, wrong center, then of course, even if something best is about to happen, I will spoil it. The mother says, I even go so far as to affirm that in the zone of immediate influence of each one, the right attitude not only has the power to turn every circumstance to advantage, but can change the circumstance itself. So, you know how it's said that Vidhi ka vidhan koi nahi badal sakta. We have heard that, right? But she's saying that if one is connected to the highest consciousness, if one knows that I am more than this limited, and more than knowing, if one is kind of, if that is alive for me, if I feel that if it's my truth, the truth of my existence, then you can change the circumstance itself. So I'll pause here if there's any comment, anything before we just the example which was given. So we are reading about the attitude. Yes, sir.
Yes. So, ma'am, I was reading this one month for the second time because, like in India, this is only just an example. Like, I know this is talking about much like beyond the thing that I'm going to talk. So, in India, when before the inverters were a thing, when we lost electricity, the mindset that I was growing with is मतलब neighbors के घर में electricity मतलब let's say summer में light गई, it's really hot in the house, लगता है कि yeah it's so hot and the coping mechanism is बाजू वाले अंकल को जाके पूछना अंकल आपके घर में लाइट है क्या, अंकल बोलते हैं नहीं, तो तो फिर तो ठीक है, क्योंकि तब आ जाता है सेटिस्फैक्शन, तो then it's not that much hurtful. So the three things that I find are my factors towards not being able to hold a higher consciousness is one is comparison. Every time I am in a situation that is against my comfort zone, that is against something that I'm trying to do, then the first thing is, oh मेरे साथ ऐसे हो गया, oh god ऐसे कैसे हो गया, और वो लोग तो ठीक है, but it's only happening with me, right? So that is there. Also, the second is ego. I feel personally that when I'm in a situation, no, my ego becomes a second part, and it is talking to me from the outside. It is telling me that Jagan, तेरे को हुआ ऐसे, तू struggle कर रहा है. No, that's what it like. I actually feel it talking to me like that, and I see that it is telling me, oh, you are suffering. You are not supposed to suffer. You should be enjoying life. This is not what it is. And then the coping mechanism is something else, comparison or whatever. Then the third is the vitals cleverness. Like, you know, I think of myself that, oh, I'm so sincere. I'm sincere about following mother. I'm sincere about the writings, the learnings, and I'm actually practicing it only until the situation is, the situation is in support of me. The moment it switches against me, the sincerity goes away. So, like, not fully goes away, but for a period of time it goes away, and that is just about enough for me to act in a lower conscious state. So yes, so when I was reading that, the three things factors that were affecting me personally is comparison, ego, and lack of certain extent of sincerity. I just wanted to share this.
Yes, thank you. I like the clarity with which you said it. And yet, I think the correct way of saying would be that the three factors that I can see are this, and this, right? But yeah, I mean, those are really good factors too for all of us. And comparison, plays a huge deal. If, something happens out of ordinary, unexpectedly, if it's happened to 10 other people around me, then it feels that, okay, oh, that's how it is happening. And yet, if it happens only to me, I do cry out more. Absolutely. Ego, to, of course, behind comparison, also the ego is standing, right? कि मेरे साथ, मतलब wherever I become me, right? For comparison, there has to be a me. There has to be, again, obviously, the ego which is making our world go round. Yeah. And what you said, the last thing, when situations are good, it's you are fine, but when they're turning south, one lashes out. But that is the process. That is the process that, and yet that's why it was saying, I was saying that when we go down that road and we are kind of criticizing and complaining, but then when we see I'm criticizing and complaining, I can turn back, right? I can turn back. I can see that, oh, that's where I am going. And now, when I have gone there enough, I can turn back. Okay.
It's like not being able to convince myself, like like it's like this. So there is a situation in front of me, and I am actually telling myself that, Jagan, this is a phase, this is an experience that you need, and this is important, even if it's bad. And this is how mother is, you know heading you towards your goal. I'm able to tell that to myself in a way that I can hear it, but then it is not actually happening within. Because, if I'm really content that, okay, this is the process, this is something that needs to happen, this is what is given, then I would be happy internally. But I was not happy. I was telling myself that, yeah, this is for a good purpose, this is required. But innerly it never felt like that. It's like, so far it really never felt like that. Like, I know that I'm not really there in terms of sincerity, because internally I'm still sad. Yeah, so yeah, so that is also there, because yeah, that's all. Thank you.
The fact that you can see it and acknowledge it is a very big step in itself. How it's like there's a whole thing that we have to cross. That इतनी जल्दी कैसे वो straight बोल दे कि हाँ हाँ बहुत बढ़िया और दो, times. So, but the fact that when we see that, okay, how it shifts, how it changes, how for that also I have conditions and expectations, that is helpful, because slowly, that will seep in for sure. Like, there's no doubt in that. But before that, at least this acknowledgement that this is what I do, because this escapes us. There's a blindness in us that, makes us believe different things are happening while I'm reacting differently. So this is great. And now that we are reading this, and if we believed in this, because we're taking away, we're taking a long time to go over these, I can even further pay attention to how I am reacting to it, right? Like, everything is my reaction. And, there are so many stories of, how I remember there was this story from Jetsunmada Tenzin Pamo. She was talking about her Lama, and she said that nothing moved him. Like, there was this beautiful thing that how, when they were exiled from Tibet, when they were here in, I don't know, Dharamshala, near Dharamshala, like McLeodganj and all, Tashi Jong maybe. There was this news that the government is vacating all the monasteries and all, and they are sending them south. So right now, they were in that area, still in that region. So there was this a little bit of similarity, right? That okay, they have you know left their home country, they have taken refuge. There is a little bit similarity in the terrain, and the temperatures are cold, and they are now kind of a bit settled here. People are a little bit, they feel at home. And now this news that they are sending all the monasteries and the lamas to the south, you can imagine, right? North, where the mountains are, to south, there's a huge difference in temperatures and everything. So a lot of, almost everybody, she said, was like kind of praying, because they were allowing some, they were not allowing some, something like this, and they were told theirs would not be allowed. So there was a lot of kind of anxiety, and people were wishing it would not happen. And then finally a news came that it's not happening, they will be allowed to stay here. So they said ki when they heard the news, like they jumped with joy, the new ordained nurse, the lamas and all. And one of, like, few of them ran to where the lama was just practicing some calligraphy or something. And they were like, the news has come. And he continued, and he said, okay. Like if you would tell him this is, like, okay, there's tea for you, he'll be like, okay. So it was the same, okay. So as if कि अगर जाना भी पड़ता, so what? Like it didn't, the outer circumstances which really move us, like they make us dance like puppets, right? And yet something which obviously sounds big right now when I'm narrating it, it's sounding big. It was just like, okay, nahi jana, okay, jana, okay. So it's good to hear these things, right? Because then one just feels that, okay, as a human, I'm capable of that too, right? Like if another human, like, we talk about God, we talk about, I don't know, whatever. It's tough that we can say, the ego can say, right? Arey wo to Bhagwan the, arey wo to avatar the. And yet, when we see this happening live, it gives a lot of, hope and certitude कि अच्छा, okay, मेरी भी ये possibility है. And that's very, that I don't know, I feel there's some relation that forms, a new bridge gets formed, and one, because one then starts aspiring for that. Before that, one doesn't even know that state is possible for me. So again, a very good example, just rereading it before we move further. So for instance, when a man comes to kill you, if you remain in the ordinary consciousness, even while we are reading the sentence, it feels fine, right? Like, for instance, when a man comes to kill you, like there's some movement happening right there only just by reading this. That if you remain in the ordinary consciousness and get frightened out of your wits, he will most probably succeed in doing what he came for. The second is, if you rise a little higher and, though full of fear, call for the divine help, he may just miss you, doing you slight injury. If, however, you have the right attitude and the full consciousness of the divine presence everywhere around you, he will not be able to lift even a finger against you. I think there is a story, I think it's Buddha's story, that somebody had come to kill him, I don't know, shoot him or with some sword. And when he came and, no, I think it was, I don't know, Shri, like there was the story that somebody had come with the wrong intention with a weapon in their hand, and they just looked at the person and they couldn't move. They couldn't move. They just froze, but there was so much peace and there was so much just power around that person that they couldn't do it. So there are live examples of this happening. It's not just there to make a point that, oh,
Ma'am, isn't it the story of Sai Baba in the forest when the thieves come to kill him, but then they become his disciples?
that too could be it. Like there are more than one stories, but okay, so I have not heard of that one. So then they came to kill him and they become his disciples instead. Okay. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So we will read this further so that more light can be shed on that. Yeah, Ritu, you want to say something or you want to read?
No, I'm saying something.
Bola.
So Thich
Yeah.
I had seen one of his video where it's about going home. So like you've just shared about Tenzing Palmo. So Thich I think he was born in Vietnam and then he had to go through that war and then he was making the world aware of the atrocities and all. The monks were burning themselves alive. So he was I think he was sent to some other country, maybe US or somewhere, and otherwise all his life he'd spent in Vietnam and he was used to love Vietnam. So he was very upset about all this initially, but later on he was very at peace with himself. He was like that wherever I go, I am at home because the outer circumstances is not what I call my home. It's me and the inner circumstances which I have with me always, which I call home. So that was a beautiful video. You must have seen it, na, Taru?
Yeah, I have seen it going home where he said that, but it was again very beautiful because he described how was a long time he felt lost, right? Like he felt that, oh my God, what has happened? And I never be able to go home. Imagine going for, a retreat, coming to a retreat in America, not realizing that that would be the last time you will see your home, right? Like that's it. So he had described how he reached to that conclusion after much in gathering that the home is within, that is not home.
Yeah, so basically his attitude changed.
Yeah, his attitude changed because I think he shared, how even in his dreams he would keep seeing his homeland and, yearning to go back. And then slowly it dawned on him, but my home is within. Yeah. Changing my attitude. It sounds very simple, right? कि अरे दिख रहा है तो कर लो ना, कर लेंगे. And yet, it's like, we were reading, I think in the morning, yesterday in the Friday study circle, that how it's like, the things get fossilized in us, they get crystallized in us, like there are certain patterns, and then that just gets set. I am unable to move then, and I don't see it. So, this change in attitude, if one is mindful, if one is seeing, one can, especially with grace, can modify the actions and reactions and attitude. And that is why we are reading this. Otherwise, there's no other reason. The other day, there was this thing I read. It was by Ajahn Chah. So he had shared an example. He had said that, say, if a doctor has prescribed a medicine and he has given you a good prescription, because you have to take this, take it this many times a day, da, 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 da. and you read the prescriptions really well, right? Like you read it really well. Maybe you read it 500 times a day. He said you will not get better, right? Like if there are 500 people who read the prescription really, really well, none of them would get better unless they take the medicine. Like it sounds obvious, right? And yet he was like, because he's a Buddhist, he said the Buddha is a healer. So if we just remain at the level of reading what he had said, but if we are not putting it into our lives, it's the same example that I'm just reading a prescription, but I am not taking it in. So I think that's a good example for us to, yeah, move a little bit. So going to the next paragraph. So
Yeah,
would anybody?
yeah, I have had innumerable examples of the power of right attitude. I have seen crowds saved from catastrophes by one single person keeping the right attitude. But it must be an attitude that does not remain somewhere very high and leaves the body to its usual reactions. If you remain high up like that, saying, let God's will be done, you may get killed all the time, all the same. For your body may be quite undivine, shivering with fear. The thing is to hold the true consciousness in the body itself and not have the least fear and be full of the divine peace. Then indeed there is no danger. Not only can attacks of men be warded off, but beasts also, and even the elements can be affected. I can give you a little example. You remember the night of the great cyclone when there was a tremendous noise and splash of rain all about the place. I thought I would go to Sri Aurobindo's room and help him shut the windows. I just opened his door and found him sitting quietly at his desk writing. There was such a solid peace in the room that nobody would have dreamed that a cyclone was raging outside. All the windows were wide open, not a drop of rain was coming inside.
Yes, thank you. I think here this is important that if you remain high up like that, saying let God's will be done, you may get killed all the same, for your body may be quite undivine, shivering with fear. The thing is to hold the true consciousness in the body itself and not have the least fear and be full of divine peace. It's just what they had said in the last paragraph that if one is able to, get in touch with the higher consciousness, that is possible. So again, just saying it verbally and yet the body is shivering would not happen. And then this has to be a daily work, right? It won't just happen the day somebody comes and wants to kill you, like in the last example. So it's a work in progress. And yeah, it's self-explanatory. So I'll move on unless, of course, there's anything. Please feel free to say if there's something.
In the end, when Mother says that not a single drop of rain, Even when the windows were wide open, it did not come inside. I'm just curious that what kind of a chemistry does does a humans um, does a human being have with the surroundings, with the nature, or with the people around, that exhibiting such characteristics of not being affected can also uh, literally make the nature itself bow down, not bother. Like that sounds magical to me, that not even in the middle of a cyclone, when the windows were wide open, one thing is Sri Aurobindo is sitting calm, and then other thing is that even he's sitting calm to such an extent that not even the rain is coming inside. So then there has to be a chemistry that's undiscovered, that at this level of consciousness even the elements bow down. So interesting to to read that. I've read that before. It just makes it clearer this time.
Yeah. And again, this thing about the oneness, which we are unable to see or feel in our everyday, it comes, right? That if everything is one, again, one can operate these things, right? Like we keep saying that, okay, but it's natural that we do this, it's natural what this happens. And yet it is said that you are not nature, right? The Atma is above the nature. And there's so much peace that is oozing out of somebody, so much stillness, that even those, the natural things which are like so obvious, right? That how is it possible? But they are not touching, because right now that thing doesn't need to be disturbed. There's this aura, there is this energy which it cannot pierce. And even say I don't know the extent, but the idea is the same, in these forms like say Tai Chi, in Qi Gang, in which you're working, with prana, the Qi, the energy. There are so many exercises in which, you're creating a glass ball around yourself. Like, you actually do it. You believe that there is this pranic ball and negativity would not enter. So, though, but one has to have faith, right? Like we usually just laugh, or we're like, yeah, whatever, let me do it if somebody else is doing. The faith is not there. And yet these examples are pretty amazing. And like how they speak about Rag Malhar, that in olden times you would sing that song and that would move the clouds and the rain would come. It's pretty amazing what all is possible if one has that connection and that peace. Yeah, Ritu, you wanted to say anything?
No, I was thinking about the same thing, Ragmalhar.
Okay.
As kids, I would not believe it. I would think that maybe this is just, explained in a with lot of frills and fancies. That this is
Yeah.
happening, but it's difficult to believe how it can actually happen.
Yeah. And this also happens with people, right? Like there's some people around which there is, when you go or you visit them or you meet them, you feel a lot of more stillness and peace in you, right? Because that stillness and peace is what they are living and they're able to ooze that out. While there are others who might be okay on the surface, but when you meet them after that, you feel very agitated, right? You feel
Mm.
that something is not right. Like you have to take it out from your system. I remember I had read a little bit of Ramayana, not even fully, when I was quite little. And in that, almost at the beginning was this question that, they were asking the rishis. I don't know who was asking who, but they were asking the rishis that when I go in the forest, there are so many forms and things that come and meet me, right? There are angels, there are saints, there are demons in the form of angels. Like, how do I know which is demonic and which is angelic? Like somebody had asked, and the rishi said that the most, like, sure thing of knowing good after they leave. If they have left, if you feel at peace, that means that was angelic. But after they leave, if you feel that, oh God, there's some restlessness in you, for sure that was demonic in origin. So, but I don't know what good it would be to know after, but at least one sees that, I think once I had seen this video, I don't know of what, there was some retreat, and before the person, there was a lady, I don't know who it was a very long time back, that she had come, she was to come and take the retreat. And before that, say 700-800 people were just non-stop talking among themselves in small groups. And one thing is, you demand peace, right? The one person is holding the microphone and they're just demanding peace. कि, okay, chup ho jaiye, shanti rakhiye, whatever, whatever. And she just entered the room, and slowly, it was just that the peace spread, the stillness spread, and he just, I don't know, she had just taken 10-15 steps in, and the hall was quiet. People started sitting down, and by the time she had reached the stage, it was all peaceful. Like, wow. So we do see a little bit of this in our everyday. I'll just reread this, that if you remain high up like that, saying, let God's will be done, you may get killed all the same, for your body may be quiet and divine, shivering with fear. The thing is to hold the true consciousness in the body itself and not have the least fear and be full of divine peace. Then indeed there is no danger. Not only can attacks of men be warded off, but beasts also, and even the elements can be affected. I can give you a little example. So she gives the example that we have read. There's also an example here that, mother was with a group of a few people. He was going through a forest, and it was time for her to meditate, and she really wanted to meditate at that time. So the incident is that she told the others to continue. They were about to reach their next destination, while she would sit and meditate for some time. So I think while, when she was meditating, she felt a presence, and she opened her eyes, and I think, I don't remember, it was a lion or a tiger, was sitting right in front of her. And she was like, she just looked at him and just closed her eyes and continued. So, and then after a while, she felt he is gone. And even I remember my father, he used to go and visit his guru in Baklo, near Pathankot, Dalhousie, and all. There too, his ashram in Baklo was in a forest. So there too, he had not actually seen it with his own eyes, but people, the other disciples who stayed there throughout the year had shared with him that when he's meditating there in the forest, there's so many times we can see, like lions and all, kind of walking around him, sitting along with him and whatever near him, and then just walking away because they don't feel that fear. They don't feel either the attack or the fear, and it's just fine. So, again, like you said, it feels like magic, but there are live examples of such things.
Ma'am, when you were talking about the aura of a person, I was thinking to myself that also the opinion I carry about someone kind of blemishes the actual aura. Like, let's say there is a person I'm going to meet who is negatively impacting my future. Let's say he's putting me in a direction that he's good in his point of view, but not for me. It's just not for me. Like my uncle's asking me to apply for gate examination after my engineering. That was not for me. But regardless, so the it's only like a metaphor, but my opinion of them also kind of uh, uh, also kind of stood as a barrier to actually feel the real aura. Like there is also like a made up aura in my head that, oh no, it is me that's thinking wrong. They are right because they are adults and they know everything. So yeah, there was that challenge too. It wasn't, for me at least, it wasn't that straightforward because there were some people that were it's not that they wanted to, it was just the perspective was different to mine, but I could still I had to force myself into their perspective because the real aura I couldn't quite grasp it. It was my own made up thing, oh, anything they say is right. So yeah, there was that is something I wanted to share.
Yeah, so because of my stories, my eyes, my vision gets tarnished, right? I wear different colored glasses and I don't see actually how things really are. Yeah, absolutely. So by doing that, I just end up harming myself, right? They don't like if my vision is tarnished or not right, it doesn't bother anybody else, just bothers me. So that too is a point. And once I start working on myself, that thing gets away, right? When I see that I'm not really seeing, I'm not really experiencing, I'm just living the past again and again and carrying images, it helps in shedding that off. So we are almost at the end of the time, but we'll just read this and see little bit and see if we can take something for reflection, but at least read it because most of it were just examples. So would anybody like to read it? Otherwise I'll read it.
I can read it, man. It's okay. So the starting from there is a state, right? Okay. So there is a state in which one realizes that the effects of things, circumstances, all the movements and actions of life on the consciousness depends almost exclusively upon one's attitude to these things. There is a moment when one becomes sufficiently conscious to realize that things in themselves are truly neither good nor bad. They are this only in relation to us. Their effect on us depends absolutely upon the attitude we have towards them. The same thing. This is the same thing, identically the same. If we take it as a gift of God, as a divine grace, as the result of the full harmony, helps us to become more conscious, stronger, more true. While if we take it exactly the very same circumstance as a blow from fate, as a bad force wanting to affect us, this constricts us, weighs us down, and takes away from us all consciousness and strength and harmony.
Yeah, Jagan, we can stop here. This I think is
Yes.
enough in itself. So very simply said that there is a state in which one realizes that the effect of things, circumstances, all movements and actions of life on the consciousness depends almost exclusively upon one's attitude to these things. So exclusively they're depending on one's attitude. There's a moment one becomes sufficiently conscious to realize that things in themselves are truly neither good nor bad. They are this only in relation to us. Their effect on us depend absolutely upon the attitude we have towards them. The same thing, identically the same thing, if it is taken as a gift of God, as divine grace, as a result of the full harmony, helps us to become more conscious, stronger, more true. While if we take it, as a blow from fate, as a bad force wanting to affect us, this constricts us, weighs us down, takes away from us all consciousness and strength and harmony. So that's again, like we were saying, that this is very revelatory, and it's worded very strongly. There's no room for if and but, because we have this tendency, right? The ego always pulls reason. अरे ये तो बोला है, पर जो मेरे साथ हुआ है वो तो इतना बड़ा है, या इतना ट्विस्टेड है, या इतना क्रूअल है, that how do I, let it go? How do I see this is for the good? And yet, no price is big, is a big price for transformation if I'm able to see that. I was just, reading something today. I don't know how related it is, but it's very beautiful. Here it says that in Alipur jail, Sri Aurobindo did not know what was going to happen to him outwardly. So to say, he could be sentenced to imprisonment, deportation to the Andamans. Yet, just at the time when we might be expecting a lament from him that, oh God, what will happen? Sri Aurobindo wrote, it is he in the sun that is ageless and deathless, and into the midnight his shadow is thrown. In the sun, he lives in the sun, which is ageless and deathless, and into the midnight his shadow is thrown. When darkness was dense and covered in darkness. So, imagine the density of the darkness. The darkness is covered in darkness. He was seated within it, immense and alone. That even in the depths and depths and depths of my darkness, it was he who was seated within it. So there is one thing to just say it, out of the beauty while you're writing a poem. But if you're in the jail, in the British jail, and you know that everybody is conspiring against you, the evidence is being planted against you, and still to just be just saying this, that it is he in the sun that is ageless and deathless, it means something. And just, we were talking about circumstances, events, and then we were talking about this attitude. And this is again so, we have heard this before, but it was nice to read this fully, that, pain is the hammer of the gods to break a dead resistance in the mortal's heart. We have read this part before, I believe. His slow inertia as of living stone. So that dead resistance is my inertia, as if I am a living stone. Like I have so much inertia, so much resistance to change. It's as if I am a stone which is just living. If the heart were not forced to want and weep, his soul would have lain down content at ease. Then there will be no will for progress. There will be no that, okay, I can't take it. Tell me how to get out of it. And never thought to exceed the human start, and never learn to climb towards the sun. So pain is a hammer of the god to break a dead resistance in the mortal's heart. his slow inertia as of living stone. If the heart were not forced to want and weep, his soul would have lain down content at ease and never thought to exceed the human start. कि जैसे थे, जैसे humans आए, वहीं पे रह जाते. There would be no evolution, no progress, and never learn to climb towards the sun. Yeah. So I'll share this what we read in the group. It's quite nice. So we'll end here today. Again, reminding that we have this PDF in the group if we want to revisit what we read today or read further ahead. It would be great if we would like to do that. So it's about attitude that we are reading, and with attitude, let's just thanking Grace for the opportunity of the session, the capability that one can read and understand and hopefully implement certain things into practice in our daily lives. May all beings be well and happy and be truly at peace. Thank you.